Hey, welcome to the Early Morning Musician. This show is for artists committed to creating in the margins.
Before their day jobs, after the kids are asleep.
From the business trip or the basement.
We get it, and we're going to share everything we've learned along the way.
Welcome to
The Early Morning Musician. First of all, let's start off episode 20 by saying I just saw the funniest TikTok I've seen in a while.
Okay.
It was a church that did, you know how churches like to take secular songs and then like make them Christian with Christian lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
They did Creep by Radiohead.
Yeah.
And
I actually saw that too.
Did you? Was it because I sent it to you, or did it just come up? Yeah, that was awesome. So happy 21st episode, everybody! Go look up that TikTok. It's hilarious. Welcome back to the Early Morning Musician. I'm Ryan.
I'm Carissa.
And we are here to talk about... Carissa, tell them what we're talking about today.
We're talking about the 5 things that we learned this year making music every month for the whole year.
Yeah.
The top 5 things.
The top 5 things. Because we're wrapping up here. It's the end of 2024. We're about to take a short break. We're going to have one more episode after this, and then we're going to be off for like 6 weeks so that we can revamp the space, change the look up, and relaunch in 2025. Super excited about the new look and the new things coming. Very cool. But it does mean we're going to be offline for a little bit. Sorry.
But I think that next year is going to be an upgrade.
Huge upgrade.
Now that we've kind of gotten a year under our belts of doing this consistently, now I feel like we can focus on the frou-frou stuff, like the look.
Yeah, I feel like the first year is all about what not to do, you know? And I feel like I've learned a lot of things that I would not do.
Yeah, and I think that this was great. This has been great.
Yeah, it's been great, but there's just things I would do differently, you know? Like I would just do a lot of things differently, but I didn't know it until I did it wrong, you know? But now I know. Now I know for a fact. I'm like, oh yeah, here's actually what I'm trying to go for.
Yeah, so we'll be back.
It's going to be awesome. But for this episode, we're hitting the 5 things that we learned
this year
doing music for real. Like for real doing music for a whole year.
Yeah.
Look at us. A whole year. That's nuts. We did it.
I know.
Look at us. Just a couple of, what do you call it when you don't have follow through?
Quitter?
Flaky quitters? Whatever. We've been flaky quitters for a minute, but we're not this year. So let's talk about it. Top 5 things we learned this year. Number 1. Hit us with it.
Number 1, the top 5 things that we learned this year. Marketing takes as much work as the creation. And we did not focus on marketing this year. We focused on creation alone.
Yeah, we just did like a little bit of marketing. We kind of like dipped our toes in, but it wasn't a priority. It was like, what marketing can we fit in? There were maybe a couple of times where we like dug a little deeper for marketing, but we never really dove in.
We didn't know at the beginning of this year that it took as much time as it did. So
the marketing piece.
Yes, we thought we would spend most of our time creating. You know, if it's a pie chart, we're going to spend 80% of our time creating, maybe 20% of our time marketing, or maybe even 90-10. And that is not how it goes.
Yeah, and I think that's normal. Like, had you asked me before, like, hey, if you're making music, how much of your time is spent making music? How much of your time is spent marketing music? I probably would have told you, well, it's like 80-90% making music, 10% marketing and promoting.
Yeah.
And like, I would say that might have actually been what we did this year, like the 10% maybe in marketing, and realizing like, oh, that literally doesn't scratch the surface.
I actually think that there are a lot of people who are more successful on the marketing side who spend more time and effort marketing than creating.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into that. Like, I would rather spend the majority of our time creating and a minority of time marketing. But marketing takes so much more time than we thought, and it really does, to do it well, take as much time, probably.
For you, what has been the hardest part of the marketing that we've done? What was the hardest part to actually accomplish? What do you think?
Consistency.
Just consistently marketing of any kind.
Yes, because like, it's just like the music, it never is supposed to stop.
Right.
If you stop, so like last month when we got behind on our song, so there was a month that October, I guess we didn't No,
it was September.
It was September. We didn't technically have a release.
Right.
We released August 31st, and then we released October 21st.
Right. Yep.
Yes. So there was like a month in there. When we kind of took that gap, I kind of took a little gap in the marketing.
Yeah, you did.
And we also had
the
a lot.
Fans noticed.
We had a lot going on in our personal life. So there was a lot going on.
Yeah. I mean, it was a bonkers season.
But during that time, the effect of not being consistent was like really apparent across our listenership, our audience, growth, streaming, everything took like a big hit.
Yeah.
And my friends and people who watch the show were like, why haven't I heard anything
why
from
haven't
you?
you posted? Where's the next song?
And it's like, oh my gosh, because the reason you haven't heard from me is because it never stops. And every week we have to have like at least 5 pieces of short form video material.
Yeah.
In order to be consistent.
That's the name of the game. Short form content.
Yeah. And at the beginning of the year, we were even trying to do like 7 to 10 short form video pieces a week.
Yes.
Because we were trying to do music marketing every day and podcast marketing every day.
Yeah.
So for a while, I was doing a post in the morning and a post at night.
Doubled up.
And it's not the posting. I mean, honestly, it's a surprise how long posting takes. But it's not the posting that takes so long. It's the filming. It's like the brainstorming. It's the dressing. And it's the video editing. And it's looking at the video and realizing that you look stupid and doing it again. And it's like the time that you spent sitting in the floor thinking like, do I really look like that when I open my mouth? And the reassurance seeking that you do from your friends and neighbors.
Eats up time, too much time. You can't.
And adding, correct subtitles and adding hashtags, and it's just it is such a time consuming.
It is,
thing.
But I think we learned a lot this year, and we've sped up all those processes. Like if you look back at January, February, how long did it take us to shoot a TikTok compared to what it takes us now? We can do it like quick because we're not like looking for camera settings anymore. You know what I mean? Like we already know as soon as we have the idea, we're like, okay, we can execute that, do it.
Yeah.
So,
and after you've been consistent for a little while, like maybe 3 months ago, we had somebody reach out to us via email and was like, hey, would you beta test this AI video editor?
Yeah.
For your podcast. And it was, sure, why not? It was super, super cheap, and it was free to try and then super, super cheap to beta test. And we're still using that on like very, very little money, where we're just getting to plug in our YouTube videos, and this AI is creating our short form reels and TikToks for us. So that's a huge like human load,
Yeah, and
like
I think we're going to see like more of that. Like AI is already offloading a lot of busy work for creatives.
Yes.
And we're going to see like what did we use it on the other day? Like, we're working on rebranding some of our early morning musician stuff.
Yeah.
And
rebranding the pod.
You were using AI to like create some of the graphics and some of the ideas around it. And it was like, oh my gosh, that would have taken us
it's amazing.
That would have taken us a month to make that, and it just did it, and it looked amazing.
It's amazing how smart it is and how capable it is. And it's not as good. I find that the short form video stuff from the podcast is not as strong as it is to have a human doing it. It was better when I had a human doing it, but it is like a really good thing to be able to delegate, and finding those things out in the marketing process, what's worth offloading, what's worth paying for. That's been really, really helpful.
And I think as AI gets better, because it's only going to get better, you know, AI, what was it, like a year ago, we were all watching that video of like Will Smith eating the noodles. That was like the first AI video that we had, and he just like looked insane. You remember that video?
No.
You don't remember that?
No, but I remember.
I need to add that in. Grind, put that in here somewhere so that people can see it. It's a hilarious video.
There was this trend on TikTok, and it probably still is, where people would post a photo and tell AI to make it come alive. And people were mostly doing that with like their dogs.
That's terrifying.
And what AI would try to do to like make the dog run,
like,
and inevitably it would turn into like
something
horror.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the way the Will Smith video was. It was terrifying.
AI is getting smarter,
but it's getting
though.
better. Yeah, it's getting better. It's like the accuracy is going through the roof right now. So yeah, that's going to help us out in a big way, I think, in 2025. So marketing, guys, it's as much work to market a song as it is to make a song.
And speaking of marketing, we also learned something that you should not do.
We did.
When you are trying to market.
Yes. Krista, why don't you tell them?
Okay.
Why don't you tell them about this thing you're talking about right now? Because it was you.
Oh my gosh.
This was a Carissa thing, guys.
We got, I don't know, 9 songs in. And when we were about 9 songs into our catalog this year, Ryan was like, okay, Carissa, I want you to start pulling the trigger on paid advertising.
Right. Where do we put our money? How do we do this?
Yeah. We've got a magazine now. If we pay for advertising and people come, there's a history of work that they can dive into.
That was always the goal.
That was always the goal. So once we got like 9 songs in, he releases me. That was the first mistake.
Mistake 1.
To go into the world of like paid music advertising. So I'm researching all of these different programs, or not programs, but like services.
Services, like online marketing services.
I'm researching all of these services, and some are cheaper than others. And
wonder why.
We tried one and it worked.
Yeah, we got on a couple playlists.
It was like modest results kind of for like kind of a bit of money, quite a bit of money. And it was like,
well, when you say quite a bit, what was it, like $100 or something?
Yes.
We paid $100 and they did what for us exactly?
So we paid
they pitched our song to playlists.
They pitched our song, and the reason that that's okay is because they're not guaranteeing you anything.
Right.
They send it to like playlist curators. The playlist curators listen to it and they give you feedback. And they may come back and say, I don't like this. This isn't a good fit for me. Here's what I think is wrong with it. Here's why I'm not going to include it. And then there's some who say like, hey, actually, I like this. I'm going to put it on my playlist.
Right. And we got on a couple, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
We like that.
But here's what you can't do is
What can you not do, Carissa?
There was a service that I thought it was creating Spotify ads. So I thought that if you've ever been on Spotify and you've seen an ad, like you can be listening to your own music and all of a sudden a song will pop up that you've never heard while you're listening.
Yep.
You don't really know it's an ad if you're passively listening.
Right. Like if you're just listening with headphones in, driving, you don't know it's an ad, but there's actually a song playing that's an ad. Musicians do that all the time.
Yes. So those count as streams, I think. Or that's what I thought.
I have no idea.
So anyway, long story short, one thing that we learned is don't pay for services that
promise you
can pay for streams.
A certain number of streams.
Yes.
Obviously.
Because
obviously you can't do that.
What that is, I think, and this service denied it vehemently, but I think that those were bots.
100% they were bots. I knew the moment that the service started, it was bots because it was way too many streams, way too fast. Yeah. There's no way that organically. It was
extremely fast.
Yeah.
And
it was like we woke up one morning and it was like
1,000.
1,000 streams. And I was like, nope.
Yeah.
That's too fast. No way. Yeah.
And it would be so many people listening at one time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people listening at one time.
We were hoping to have like one person listening. And then you get on, it's like 176 people are listening. And we were like,
right now.
No, they're not. No, they're not.
So we contacted Spotify and we were really, really scared because if you get caught using bots, they can take your songs down.
Right. If they think you're botting your own songs and like pumping up your streams, because there's money generated when they do that. Like they have to pay us money. Yeah. So that's what some people do. They send a bunch of bots to their playlist or to their songs, rack up a bunch of streams. There she goes. You can tell it's late at night. Rack up a bunch of streams. And of course, Spotify doesn't want to pay an artist, right? So that's why they'll flag you. They'll take your song down. And Carissa accidentally.
I think I did that.
She for sure did that.
Yeah. So.
2 of our songs.
But they did not get taken down.
Praise the Lord.
We're so grateful.
So thank you, Spotify,
happy.
Whoever you are out there that did not take our songs down.
It turned out okay.
So appreciative.
It turned out okay. But it was scary while it was happening, and I really regretted it. So we learned that.
So if anything even smells like it's a bot's, just
really research.
Stay away from it.
Because I asked them, I was like, where are your ads placed?
And they would say algorithmic playlists. Well,
before I placed them on Spotify, they were like, our ads are placed on Spotify. And I was like, oh, it's a Spotify ad. You need to do some more digging.
The service was called Pitch Us. So if you're an artist out there and you see that, because they are all over. If you Google like music marketing, their stuff pops up towards the top. It's very prominent. They're obviously like...
Yeah, they're paying for ads.
Yeah, their SEO is...
And that's how I found them, great. Is that I had been researching music marketing and they paid for an ad to reach me on Facebook, and the Facebook ad reached me.
Not only that, they even paid, or obviously like there was a site that had a lot of reviews of them that had lots of really, really good reviews. Like it looked legit. Like all these people are like, wow, wow, wow. But if you just keep scrolling and get close to the bottom, all of a sudden all the reviews start going 1 star, 1 star, 1 star, 1 star, 1 star. And it's just story after story of being like, don't read the reviews above. They're fake. They got my songs taken down.
My song got taken down.
Don't use that service,
so scary to discover that after we had already used them.
Yeah. Yep. So don't do that.
It turned out okay.
It did. So let's move on. Okay. Number 3. This one is an important one for me. This is something I feel like I learned the hard way this year. And it was, don't overproduce the song before you write the vocal melody. So if you're a songwriter and you've done much research on like how to write a song, there's this thing called top lining, which I'm a fan of. I do understand top lining and like why people do it. It does work in some contexts. But what I was doing at the beginning of this year is I would produce a song till it was almost done. Like most of the parts are written, the song parts are all there and in order. And then I would go back and be like, okay, now I'm going to write the vocal melody. And what would happen is I would, like I loved the track. I loved the way it sounded. I loved the parts. And then I would go to start writing the melody, and I would struggle to get the melody to fit perfectly where it needed to fit to work with the like pre-existing parts that I had written. And because I loved the music, I would compromise the melody in order to make the song work, because I didn't want to have to like scratch all the parts, because I just invested so much time into all these parts, like tones and just everything. And it was like, oh, if I got to change that, then I got to change this other thing. I got to move this other piece over here, and I got to pan this somewhere else. So I would compromise on the vocal melody so that I didn't have to do that. But the truth is there's nothing more important than the vocal melody. Like no one really even cares about anything else. Truthfully, like if your vocal melody is good enough, you can sell really any song. So if I was giving you a piece of advice, which if you're a musician watching this, I guess that's kind of what's happening here, is don't overproduce the song, meaning don't get it done. Don't finish all the music before you go back and start writing the melody. Like, in fact, the last song we just did, the song we released on October 25th, so last Friday it came out. It's called Over Now. It was the first song where I said, like, I'm going to produce as little as possible before I start writing the melody. So literally all I had was acoustic guitar chords. I had an idea of what I wanted it to sound like, but I said, like, I'm not going to do anything until I have a full song, just acoustic guitar chords and vocal melody. Now, I think if you compare that song to the other 8 that we've done this year, it definitely has the strongest. It's the strongest song. For sure.
It's the strongest song for sure.
Yeah, it's a little bit more simple in its production, but it was because I was able to write around the vocal melody. So I didn't need as many parts to like make it sound full and punchy, and like the dynamics were there. And then it made writing parts really easy, because I like, you can hear where the holes are. So like, I'm just going to put the parts in the holes that exist, and it's much easier to like bend a guitar part or a synth part to where it needs to be. That's way easier than trying to bend something as important as the vocal melody. So as much as I agree with top lining, I see a lot of value in it. I think that for the most part, you have to prioritize the vocal melody. And if you're like, hey, I'm gonna top line, it's the way I write, I totally understand. But I think will
you define top lining really quick?
Top lining is just like when you have a track and then you go and sing on top of the track and you sing and like create your melody, and then once you have your vocal melody, then you go back and rewrite your words and then you put your words in. So it's like you have the track and then you go back and put your words on top of it. But if you're gonna do that, what I would say is like I think you need to also be willing that like if the track needs to have changes, you have to be willing to go back and roll the track back and get rid of parts to make the strong vocal melodies work. You don't want to have a worse melody.
So are you saying get the vocal to a finished place before you start working on the track? Get the vocal melody to a finished place?
Yes, like written. I mean, so like I might not have necessarily known like, well, I'm going to do doubles here or I'm going to put a background vocal here, but the main, like the down the center vocal, the main melody all the way through the song, verses, pre-choruses, choruses, bridges, everything. You want to have those melodies written.
Whereas top lining is not that. How?
You have the track first. The music is done and produced first.
So yeah, it's music before melody.
Right. It's like track first, the music is done, and then you go back and start working on melody. Yeah. Whereas like if you'll do the melody first and then build the track around the melody, the song is just so much stronger. And if you're going to top line, I think you have to be willing to, like when you hit those moments, like the moments when you hit them and the melody's so strong, you have to go back and be willing to edit the track. So like prioritize vocal melody and your song will just be so much stronger at the end. It makes a huge difference.
I think I remember the first time that we learned melody is king, and that was in a songwriting class in California. Mm-hmm. And I think that this idea about musicians don't write music first, write your melody, is also the same for like lyricists. And I write our lyrics. And when I was a young songwriter, one of the reasons that my songs didn't work and my songs weren't strong is because I would get lyrics first. And I think that for poetic, like right brain people, artists, that seems natural. And I think that for musicians, finding a lick or finding a cool part first, that seems natural. Finding a melody first and settling on it without anything else around it, kind of in a vacuum, does not feel natural.
It does not.
To most artists, writers, period.
You kind of want the music and the track to inspire this amazing vocal melody. That's kind of what you think would naturally happen, is like, oh, I'll write this amazing track. It'll inspire this amazing melody.
Yes.
But what ends up happening is you end up just filling up all the space.
And I have so many songwriting friends who have written so many songs that are actually like instrumentals because they love the track and they love what the music has done, but they can't fit a strong melody into the musical piece they've already written.
Right.
And myself, I got into writing poetry because I would get lyrics first, or I would get words first, and I would not be able to create strong melodies out of these lyrics.
Right.
And so I would just have to write them down and make them poems. To us, lyrics first is, or not lyrics first, sorry.
Melody.
To us, melody first is like, it's the only way to write a strong song.
Yeah, makes a huge difference. So like, do that. Just do that. Save yourself a ton of time.
Save yourself time.
And do that.
Yeah.
What's next, Chris? Number 4.
So this is a weird lesson. And I should have known, but I didn't. What I like musically is different from what other people and our listeners like. So, my favorite song of this whole year that we did was still, guess.
Right There.
It was.
Yeah.
It was still Right There. I just love that song so much.
Yeah, I do too. That's a really cool song.
That's my favorite song. The song that performed the best this year, Over Now, has performed really well, but it's only like 2 days old.
Yeah, it will probably surpass everything else.
But let's just
right now
exclude it. The song that performed best prior to that was Sunburn Season for sure.
Yeah.
And Sunburn Season was one of my least favorites for just I didn't enjoy writing it.
Yeah, I remember feeling the resistance.
Yes,
when we were
really
writing
struggled.
That one. You were like, I don't know about this, and I was like, I think this is going to work.
Yes, because our writing process, we've told you guys before, Ryan will get a melody, he'll send it to me, and I'll write the lyrics to it. And Ryan, if he doesn't think that the lyrics are punchy enough, will send it back to me, and we'll do multiple rounds.
Yeah, we just kind of go back and forth. And I'm like, maybe something more like this, and then you.
And Sunburn Season went through like 12, I think, drafts.
A bunch.
Which is a lot for, I would say like most of our songs, there are some songs that didn't go through any, it was one draft.
Probably like the first 3, they're like we didn't.
And Over Now had, I think it was one draft. And
no, it was not one
Liminal was definitely one draft.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry guys, that was too much info. Sunburn Season performed really well, and I remember feeling cringy about that song because Ryan was like, I have a vision for this. The reason that the drafts weren't working is because I was just going in a direction lyrically that I liked. But Ryan was like, no, it needs to feel like this to people. Mm-hmm. Remember, you're like serving an audience, and this is how I want to make them feel. So as we went down that path, I like fought the whole way. And sure enough, people loved inserting themselves into that song. Yeah. And it's no longer Sunburn Season, and people are still listening to it the most out of everything else. And we got
the most comments on it, the most
in our catalog,
feedback that was positive. Yeah. I mean, it was just interesting how that happened.
We're almost out of time, so go ahead and tell us the last thing.
One, don't let getting bored with a track cause you to overproduce it. And I've mentioned this in the past, but it is so real that when you're working on a song and you've been working on it for 2 or 3 weeks, and when you're driving, you're listening to it, when you're at your desk working, you've got your headphones in, you're listening to it, thinking about it, at a certain point, you just get so tired of hearing it that you start thinking like, is this song lacking something? Do I need to add a synth here or some auxiliary perk here or another vocal layer here or another vocal throw, and you start just like reaching for things. Mm-hmm. And every time you add something, you're like, oh, there it is. It sounds cool again. Mm-hmm. But you keep listening. A few days goes by, you get bored, you throw something else in there. And it just, at the end of it, it just becomes this sonic pot of just sonic stew that just is not coherent, and it's just, you're just lost in it. And the truth is, as if you stripped everything back and went back to the original thing that inspired you, that's probably still the coolest part of the song. Yeah. And it's probably drowned in all this extra stuff. And it was just that you're working on something and you're getting bored, so you're trying to add stuff so you get that inspired feeling again. Don't do that. Take a break. Listen to some other songs, like listen to some other artists, some other genres even. Yeah. Like, even if it's like, hey, I'm driving down the road today, I want to work on this song. I'm going to work on it by listening to some other things to get some perspective, get some fresh ears, and then tonight I'll go in and work on the song. So don't overproduce it. Don't overdo it just because you're bored.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, we ran out of time so fast.
Look at that. It went by quick tonight,
guys. Thank you guys so much for listening.
Yes, one more episode after this one, guys.
We're going to miss you after that episode for about till January 1st of next year. Yeah, and then we hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week. Yes. Like, subscribe, share with friends, and we'll see you next time.
Until next time, guys.
Okay.